Durks murder for hire trial has begun. Okay, today is day 1 of the trial, and we have a video from Trap Lil Ross. Shout out Trap Lil Ross for the video. We're finna dig into the video and see what is going on. So go grab what you need. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that sub button. Join Team AP. I got me a Hershey's bar. Okay. Oh my god! Holy fuck! Holy shit! I don't want to hear nothing about how big it is. I'm not judging y'all, so don't judge me. You got what you need. I got what I need. That's what matters.
Begun. I was back in the courtroom. Okay, it was very, very interesting today, and there was a lot going on. So things were a little bit different in today's session. Okay, we went to the main courtroom where Lil Durks and them were going to be. They basically brought in like 80 jurors. They basically said, look, there's so many people that actually need to be in this courtroom juror-wise. We're going to basically put all the media, all of the reporters, we're going to put you in another courtroom downstairs.
Did you say 80?
Live audio feed, so you guys are going to be able to hear everything. We don't want you to see the jurors at this point, but you're going to be able to basically hear everything that's going on. And you know, we saw people walking into the court. I saw Brian Steele in the hallway bringing that aura as always. Okay, but basically it kind of all went forward, and there were some very, very interesting things. Now there was rumors that there was going to be some kind of Free Durk protest today outside the court. Now I didn't see that, but what I did see was a lot of Lil Durk supporters in the courtroom. There were people giving out Free Durk pamphlets, postcards. I got given a whole bunch of very interesting little Free Durk postcards, which I hope I still got here. Like, shout out to the Durk supporters that were showing love and giving out this kind of thing. Like, we got these little free Lil Durk kind of postcards going
Durky, yo.
Even though, like, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to go down. All right, respect to the people that are kind of doing their thing and, you know, showing support, printing things up. They had a whole Free Durk magazine in there, and you know, they said there were going to be some more copies of it available soon. I had a look through one, but I didn't get to keep one. But it was very, 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 very interesting. A lot of support in the courtroom for Durk today. I would say like more support than I really had seen thus far for him. And like it was really a lot of people in there, more people than I'm used to seeing in there, but it wasn't completely packed out by any means yet. So basically from here, okay, the judge arrived at about 8:45, so things were starting a lot earlier than they usually have done in these previous hearings. The judge basically said that he wanted all the defendants to sit at the same table. There was like a weird little back and forth about where people were sitting. They felt like, I think Didi was kind of sat at a slightly separate table. They said, nah, I don't want him floating off on his own table. We need everybody at the right spots and all together. But apparently there was some kind of drama where they said wherever Didi was sat, you could see his foot shackles. Obviously, you know, they're allowed to have kind of their own outfits. They're not in the prison clothing anymore. But, you know, Didi was basically apparently, you know, in a position where they said, oh, the jury can see his foot shackles. That's kind of prejudice. You know, that wouldn't be allowed basically. And they kind of moved them around. They said that they were going to, I think Didi's lawyer was angling for the foot shackles to be taken off, but the judge was basically like, nah, the marshal says foot shackles got to stay on, they got to stay on. And that was that. So they kind of moved them around. They basically got them to where they wanted to be. Damn. And then we kind of got to things.
They is not playing. They is not playing. Damn, that is crazy. Damn. They said, the marshal said, nah, them motherfuckers got to stay home. He ain't escaping shit. Oh my God.
And the judge, look, respect to the judge, I think this judge has been very fair. The judge made a very small mistake that was kind of like, it felt like a big deal in the courtroom. I don't think it's going to really affect things, but there was a pretty wild moment where the judge kind of misspoke a little bit, and it was like gasps in the courtroom. I'm going to tell you about that in a sec. But basically, the judge kind of, you know, got to the statement of the case. There was apparently an objection by the defense. They said that there was a sentence in the way that the state were planning on putting forward the charges and explaining the kind of, you know, the trial indictment that they weren't entirely happy with. And there was basically kind of like a sentence that they wanted taken out. The judge overruled that. They basically said, nah, we keeping it in, like we having it as exactly as it's supposed to be. It is what it is. And then Didi's lawyer said, you know, that Didi shouldn't be mentioned specifically about the revenge motive. They said, well, it alleges the motive for Mr. Banks and the motive for all the co-conspirators. The judge said, look, we're going to have it say that all the co-conspirators conspired to murder Quando Rondo as revenge revenge for the death of King Von. And so basically the prosecutors kind of broke down what was going to be said. The judge kind of agreed, signed off on what was going to be said. Basically, this is the story that the jurors were told, okay? They said all these co-conspirators conspired to murder Quando Rondo as revenge for the death of King Von, and basically the judge would be planning to read the defendant's not guilty plea. The judge basically said, should any agents of the defense get hold of the jurors' names, should that be allowed? And basically what was interesting was Drew Findling and Brian Steele basically said, look, we got one person that's from Atlanta. They're basically like, they're an agent of the defense. We think they should get the jurors' names. We're going to have one designated person who's going to be able to do a little bit of research into their backstories, but not a bunch of people. We can't let the defendants know. We can't let all other types of lawyers back in Atlanta, all this kind of stuff. No, one person's going to be allowed. And the judge said that was allowed. They basically said, look, we don't want to impugn the defense, but the more people that know, the more likely that it's going to leak who these jurors are, what their names are. And basically the judge said, you can tell this one person who the jurors' names are. They can do their due diligence into them. Either side can investigate the jurors, but it's not really a good thing. He doesn't want excess, digging and investigating and reaching into the jurors' pasts. But, they are allowed on either side to just do a little cursory check to find out whether or not the jurors know anything deeper than maybe what we would expect them to know.
Right.
Now, Drew Findling on the defense, obviously, he killed it in the last hearing. He did a really great job on that. And pretty much we kind of heard from him that, they had a certain attorney that was kind of trusted. They passed the bar in Atlanta. They were there to help and do some additional investigation. And they basically said that the government has their own kind of agent that is going to look into the jurors' names, find out what's going on. And basically said, it was quite funny because the prosecution were like, well, what is that person going to do with the names? And the judge was like, well, they're going to look into them. Like,
right.
That is what it is. They can't have someone else look into them. There's this one person. They're going to do online searches, just a limited amount of additional investigation to the jurors to make sure that there is nothing improper going on. That's going to be in addition to the questionnaires that are going to be handed out, that have already been handed out to the jurors. And basically, the judge went over what the jurors would be told. They said the jurors' names can only be revealed to these lawyers and one case agent on either side. These names are not typically released, and basically they were trying to protect the privacy of the jury, which makes complete sense. Now,
right,
the judge brought the jurors in, introduced the lawyers, and got the statement of the case as was agreed before the jury was in. So they agreed what was going to be said before the jury was brought in. Then the jury was brought in and basically were explained by the prosecution what the allegations are. The judge emphasized that the jurors are taken under oath. Everybody is taken under oath, and they're expected to be truthful in anything they say. The judge also said we're going to talk about the gang issue. Questions about gangs are allowed, but this isn't a gang case. The gang is what kind of connects the relationship between the co-defendants and the motive. King Von's, senior leadership as a black disciple is a big part of why they wanted to get revenge of him, but it wasn't a GDBD gang war. They didn't kill Quando Rondo because he was an op. They killed him because he had been involved in a rap beef with King Von, who was a famous gangster, and unfortunately lost his life in that quarrel. Now, they basically said the jury isn't allowed to ask if someone's a member of a gang. They can listen to the testimony and they can kind of get an understanding and decide what they believe. And the judge made it very, very clear. They said that, look, they could decide based on the testimony that they don't believe any of these guys are in a gang, but they still think they committed the murder, and vice versa. They said the jury could decide based on the testimony, yeah, everybody's all part of the gangs, they're all BDs, but they didn't conspire to commit this particular murder.
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the story that's finna be told, there's no way anybody in the jury is gonna think that nobody that is involved is not in the game. Like, all the shit that's been going on.
So it was very, very clear, and the judge gave really great instructions just as far as like where this gang motive starts and ends. We can talk about the gangs that connect these guys, but the gang doesn't dictate the actual murder. It gives a motive. I mean, it's hard to understand, but it's like, it's the motive for avenging King Von is his leadership in the gang. They didn't kill Quando Rondo because of the gang he's in. Quando, a rolling 60 from Georgia, a whole separate thing, completely unrelated, and they made that very, very, very clear. And so basically, after that, the judge made it clear the public is going to be listening into this, even if there's not enough room in the courtroom. They're going to have an audio feed, and that basically tomorrow they're expecting to be allowing all of the public into the courtroom. The judge said they need all the space for the jurors, but he is not intending to have a lottery system by the sounds of it. He is intending to have as many members of the public in the courtroom as possibly allowed.
Right.
Brian went on to basically say, interesting back and forth. Brian asked the question and said, if an objection is made by another lawyer, so for example, if Didi or Brown Eyes' lawyer makes an objection and they're not working for Dirk, is this all going to be included? And basically what the judge confirmed was that unless if Didi's lawyer makes an objection, Brian Steele and them, and Drew Findling, they have to opt out and say, we don't want to be part of that objection. Otherwise, the judge is going to assume that all of their objections are included as one unit, basically. So the judge said he doesn't see that being a big issue. Certain objections might be made by certain defendants. They were joined together in all the filings. They're co-defendants. He's made it clear what exhibits were allowed. They didn't go over that in this one. And basically, they went over this thing with the leg shackles, and they said, the jury can see Didi shackles. Let's get him moved. Can we take him off? No, they can't take him off. We're going to leave him on, but we need to move him so that they can't see them. And the judge agreed it would be prejudicial if the jury could see the leg shackles. So that was that.
Playing too many games.
Didi kind of was moved around. They got people to where they wanted to be. Didi was put in the first row. Obviously, you couldn't see his feet in the first row, and that was that. So there was a short break, and then the court resumed at around 10:12 a.m. The jury was seated. Okay, the press were in a separate room, listening to everything in an audio feed, and I made all my notes on the audio feed at that point. So the judge basically claimed that the jurors' job, he explained to the jurors what their job is, what they're doing. He said the goal is we're going to turn 80 jurors into 16, 12 full-blown jurors and 4 alternates over the next 2 days. That's the plan. And they said that all jurors will have to come back tomorrow, likely even all 80 jurors have to come back tomorrow, because I was thinking, are they going to work it all out today? But what ended up happening was they did half a day, they gave the questionnaire out, they explained everything to the jurors, and they said, go away, you all got to come back tomorrow, and then we're going to work out who's who. Now, what was really interesting is all of the jurors are numbered, and he basically said, it was really interesting. I was thinking, it's going to be random, they're going to pick who they want. No, they number all the jurors from the start. Number 1 to 12 are assumed to be the main jurors, and then from there they go on to eliminate that initial 12, and they bring in people from later. But the judge made it clear, juror 1 is obviously more likely to be on the final jury than juror number 80, but that doesn't mean juror 80's got no shot. They might eliminate juror 1, 4, 5, 10, and then they might grab juror 72, they might grab juror 65, but they said that it's starting sequentially, so in theory, if there's no objections, number 1 to 12 will end up being the actual jury that ends up being used, which I just thought was quite fascinating, to be honest with you guys. So from there, okay.
That was weird how that go.
My coffee has run out, so we are now switching to the Gatorade. So, can you open that for me, please? Thank you.
Coffee? Gatorade right after? What the fuck? Trap, what is wrong with you? Like, I'm just curious. Is that a wild question? I know this ain't got nothing to do with the damn video. But like, coffee followed by a Gatorade, and I ain't gonna lie, that looked like a 0-calorie Gatorade. Hold on, let's go back real quick.
12 will end up being the actual jury that ends up being used, which I just thought was quite fascinating, to be honest with you guys. So from there, okay, my coffee has run out, so we are now switching to the Gatorade.
It's definitely...
My coffee has run out, so we are now switching to the Gatorade.
There's definitely a 0-calorie Gatorade. That's wild.
Gatorade.
I'm sorry.
Can you open that for me, please? Thank you. So basically, after that, thank you very much. After that, we then kind of moved on. The judge kind of explained all the different people that were going to be involved in the proceedings, you know, their own role in this situation, the people that were assisting them in court, all that kind of thing. And he said the trial is estimated to last a total of 3 weeks. He said tomorrow afternoon is the official start of the actual trial. He is aiming to have opening statements made tomorrow, but obviously that's not confirmed. They said he's aiming for the trial to take 2 weeks. There's going to be a Labor Day break. I guess that's like, in the UK we call it a bank holiday. Here it's, what's it called? What do you call it here? Like a national holiday, or like a national holiday? Okay, so there'll be a break for Labor Day. I don't know how long that's going to be, if that's a day. I don't know how they do things over here. But They basically said the third week should be the final week, but a fourth week is possible. Deliberations could reach into the fourth week if they're taking their time, could happen quicker. But I think the judge wants this done in 2 weeks. I think if the judge has his way, this would all be wrapped up in 2 weeks, but it's a complicated case, so who knows if that will actually end up being the case.
Damn, so Durk sat in jail for 2 years. It's crazy. Durk sat in jail for 2 years just to get judged for 2 weeks for the rest of his life. His life is on the line, and it's getting judged in 2 weeks. What the fuck?
So the judge made it very clear there would be questions that are asked to determine who's appropriate to be on the jury. The questionnaire is long but simple, he said. He said it's yes or no answers. It's not complex. It's not a case of right or wrong answers. It's not a pop quiz or a test. He said it's not a case of right or wrong answers. It's a case of truthful answers or complete answers or incomplete answers. So he said that he's given them the questionnaire today, he's given them instructions on it. That will be completed and handed over by tomorrow. It will be scanned. All sides will be allowed to receive that. Excuse me. It's dusty downtown right now, man. But anyway, he said, look, nothing is certain, all right? He said that you just got to be honest and truthful in your questionnaires. He said some people might be excluded due to hardships. If people are, you know, it's not feasible for them in their financial situation to attend every single day. If they got childcare obligations, if they got family obligations, if they got sick family that they're the only people can look after. Various different reasons. If you are a business owner and you're the sole business owner and your business is financially going to suffer by you not being there, he said that he could give you hardship. But he said basically no one has, he could say no one has a true hardship. He's saying that he's got to balance like how important it is for this case to get tried with honest and straight up jurors in combination with who has actually got genuine hardship. And he said he might not accept any excuses. It depends what's going on. Each party on both the prosecution and the defense have the right to exclude for the reasons that they put forward. They said that in some cases, if they just don't like the look of them, or if they've just got a bad feeling about some of them, they can exclude them. They don't necessarily need strict reasons, but obviously there will be reasons, and there will be information from those questionnaires and things like that. So court is set to take place 8:30 to 4:30 every day with a lunch break. They're going to be pretty intense days. Obviously the hearings have been starting at 10 a.m., getting up super early. We're on David timing now, okay? So I got there pretty early. I wasn't the first person, I was like the third person. Shout out to the couple other people that got there before me, but people are taking this very seriously and getting down there early. So they basically went on to say that this questionnaire that they're giving to the jurors is not being released publicly. It doesn't have the jurors' names on it, they're just numbered. They basically said you've just got to be honest. If you're not honest, you could be charged with perjury. They said that it's not normal in federal court to release names of jurors. The questionnaires don't have the names of the jurors on, they're just numbered, and these numbers will correspond to the juror, and that's basically what's going to determine you know, the corresponding information. If there's information about a juror from the questionnaire, they're not saying their name, they're not saying, hey, this Steve Smith, I made that name up by the way, but oh, Steve Smith is a massive fan of Lil Durk, he should be excluded, etc. So from there, like I say, the judge said.
So it seems like so far really what's going on with day one is they just trying to see who's going to be the juror, pretty much. They don't want no loose ends. They don't want no favoritism, none of that. But I feel like it's going to be kind of hard. It's going to be really, really hard to determine that because, like, okay, they go home. Now what? They look up the Lil Durk case, what's all been going on. They look into it. They can tell. Like, it's easy to find information. It's easy as hell to find information. All you got to do is look up Lil Durk and then go on YouTube, and all you see is videos of people, including me, talking about the situation. You go on Instagram, you see it's everywhere. So it's kind of hard to say like the jury is not going to be biased or like they're only going to stick to the information that they're told from each side of the party. Like I feel like they're going to do their own research at some point in time.
And if you're not honest on these questionnaires or at any point, you could be charged with perjury. Criminal counts are basically put against the defendants in order to get things going. So he basically explained what an indictment is, what these criminal counts were, how charges start, and he made it very clear to the jury. They said, look, an indictment doesn't prove anything. I'm sure Durk and his lawyers were very pleased to hear that. Obviously, the judge is being very fair. He's giving very good instructions. And he said, I'm going to give instructions that the jurors must follow. Doesn't matter if you don't like the law. Doesn't matter if you disagree with the law. If you think murder for hire, get back for Von should be allowed, that doesn't give you the right to basically dictate happens in this case. The judge is going to direct you to follow the law of the land, the case law, the precedents from previous legal cases. Just because you don't like the law doesn't mean that you can rule in contrary to it. Now, what was interesting is the judge says, look, he didn't say that he disagrees with the laws, but he said that goes for me too. I have to follow the laws that were passed and precedented. We're all obliged to follow them. The judge didn't say this, but he was basically saying there's probably laws that judge doesn't agree with. And he says it's your right as an American to disagree with the government. It's your right as an American to lobby. You can protest. You can, petition for the law to be changed. But that doesn't mean that when you're sat in that jury chair, in that jury deliberation room, that you can make personal decisions on what the outcome of a case should be contrary to the law.
Right.
The judge is going to tell you what the law is, what the precedent is, how the evidence should be interpreted in a proper way that's consistent with the law, and they're going to have to rule on that basis. So the judge.
So far it sounds like the judge is a good judge so far. What do y'all think? Y'all think this just some bullshit? Just like, you know what I'm saying? I guess we'll figure out as the trial goes on.
They basically said what is up to you. It's not up to you what laws and precedents you should follow, but what is up to you is to decide who to believe, to interpret the exhibits, and decide what you think of them. Now, again, this was really interesting because obviously we're hearing all of this talk from Durks' team talking about, these witnesses, these snitches, these participating witnesses, they can't be trusted because they've taken proffer agreements, and proffer agreements, they're going to say anything they have to get out of trouble. Well, the judge has made it very clear, having a proffer agreement doesn't make somebody inherently untrustworthy. All of these agreements were made under oath, and basically if the jury judges them based on what they said as not being truthful, then that is what it is. That's a separate issue. But they can't make up the law in themselves. They can't say because someone took a proffer they're untrustworthy. They're going to listen to their words, and if the juror says, hey, all of you lot are cappers, liars, I don't trust none of you, then the jury can make that decision and deliberate on the basis that they don't believe people are trustworthy. They said what they can't do is decide who they're going to believe before they talk based on any kind of prejudice. He didn't say this, but he basically inferred that, like, look, if you're a racist, based on somebody's race or based on somebody's background or their age, you can't just take one look at them and say, I don't believe this guy. That's not proper, that's not allowed, and you can't be doing that. So after that, the judge made all that very clear, and then it was the prosecution's opportunity to summarize the indictment charges. So I'll tell you what was said, and they summarized it based on what was pre-agreed, but I'll give you the pretty much exact wording.
What are they exactly wanting?
And again, I'd say it does lean a little bit towards the prosecution because they have an opportunity to paint the narrative that they want through the way that they introduce these charges. They're telling it like a story. They're not saying count one, count two, count three like an indictment. They're basically telling their version of the story of what they think happened. So here's what they said. They said these defendants, I'll use the nicknames, but obviously they said the real names and the nicknames. These defendants, Lil Durk, Dee and Brown Eyes, are charged in this. The allegation is that these defendants co-conspired to kill Quando Rondo. They said Taekwon Bowman, aka Quando Rondo, they said this was as part of a stalking and murder for hire allegation. They tracked the car all through Los Angeles. They tried to kill Quando Rondo as part of their stalking and murder for hire. They ended up killing the wrong person. They killed Savia Robinson, Lil Pab. The co-conspirators tried to kill Quando Rondo as revenge for the killing of King Von, and there were 5 counts that basically summarized the whole situation, which was like this overall stalking in relation to the murder, stalking Quando, stalking Savia Robinson, the murder for hire, and stalking that resulted in murder. So this part was crazy, and look, this is no disrespect, no shade to the judge, we're all human, we all make mistakes, but after that was read, the judge accidentally had a little slip of the tongue and said, okay, so these defendants have all pled guilty to these charges, and it was like audible gasps in the courtroom. Everyone was like, wait, what? Huh? Like, huh? It was like, wait, what? And then the judge was like, oh, my bad, I said they meant not guilty. Now, look, I'll be honest with you, I think it was just like a little slip of the tongue. Everything was moving fast. This was a big moment. I don't know, that could be something that Brian Steele and Drew Findling would be like, if they were being hysterical, they could have said, oh, you've tainted the whole jury, like you've said to the jury that they pled guilty when they didn't. But realistically, he corrected himself straight away. It was a slip of the tongue. This judge has been absolutely brilliant on all bases, been very, very fair. But that was almost like everyone in the courtroom, when he said guilty, everyone sort of was like, huh? It was like, wait a minute,
No,
have they just taken a plea? Like, what the hell? But obviously that wasn't the case. The judge corrected himself, and then from there on, I felt like he was very, very eloquent. Like, there was not a word out of turn after that. So yeah, I don't know exactly what was going on with that, but obviously no disrespect to the judge. I think the judge is great. Just you know, we're only human. There's a lot going on. It's high pressure. There's 80 people all watching him. But that was a moment where for a minute it seemed like, wait a minute, is this case about to be something completely different to what we were expecting?
Right.
It was crazy. Honestly, it was crazy. So after that, all of the jurors were sworn in. Obviously, they have to be truthful. The judge gave preliminary instructions for completing that questionnaire. So he said that this was all done to avoid wasting time. We're not going to ask you this stuff one by one on the stand. We'll be here forever. So he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you all here, give you instructions, give you the questionnaire. You take those away this afternoon, and we're going to meet back up tomorrow and go over what everything was said in those questionnaires with a fine-tooth comb. Now, he told them, you're legally obliged to tell the truth, and you cannot discuss this. When you fill out this questionnaire in the jury room and you go home, you cannot discuss any details of this case with anyone. That includes your friends, your family, co-workers, anyone. Like, you got to go, and you're sworn to secrecy. You're sworn omerta, like you're in the mafia, okay? But the legal mafia.
I swear, I don't think nobody actually does that. That's my opinion. I don't think nobody's actually gonna. People tell people everything. Like, that's how I feel about it. I don't think that they're.
But anyway,
every single last one of them 80 people that was up there, I don't think that they're gonna fucking be quiet about the fucking
justice system.
Case.
They said, do not communicate on social media about anything to do with this case. And this is where it got very interesting. I was thinking, I hope they don't bring my name up. But they said, do not do any online research on the case, on the defendants, on the lawyers. No online searches, no news stories, no TV shows. I was thinking, I hope you don't say YouTube documentaries, but he didn't say that, so I'm in the clear. But after that, he basically explained, look, there's other issues that were going on. He said the first set of questions, the first set of questions on the questionnaire, they're just basic background questions. They wanted to know your area. He said, do not put your full address on the questionnaire. We don't want to know your address, don't want to know your street, we don't want to know your apartment number. He just said the location, the area, and he gave examples. He said in Los Angeles, there's a lot of different areas. There's Hollywood, Los Feliz, whatever. I can't remember where they said, all right? But he basically said a bunch of places. He said, that's the limit. That's all we want to know, all right? He said, we want to know your employment status. And he said a lot of very, very interesting things. He said, it's alleged that the rap music culture is relevant to this. He said, so if you live with a music executive, if you live with someone in law enforcement, if you've done past jury experience, if you know anything about this, and this was crazy, this killed me, okay? He said there will be questions in this questionnaire about your music taste. So I don't know, they're going to be asking them if they're into Chicago drill, if they're chiracologists. He didn't say this, but I'm thinking, is he going to ask them if they're on Reddit or any of that stuff? But I don't know, maybe that's just me. But he said one of the defendants is a very well-known musician. He said rap culture is a big part of what ties these defendants together. He said you might know rap music, or you might know the defendant specifically. Obviously, they said Lil Durk and his nickname when they introduced the charges. They said Lil Durk, Didi, or D-Ski, which obviously is his rap name. As far as I'm aware, I ain't never heard no music from Brown Eyes. But anyway, they basically went on and they said that, look, I could have got this wrong because this part just flew by, but I feel like he said that he's hoping that this whole thing will be done by the 14th of September.
14.
And then he kind of was like, it could change. That's what I thought he said, it could be done by the 14th. Which anyway, he said that he's going to ask them in the questionnaire about their personal hardships, if they've got any prepaid vacations that are conflict with the estimated timing of this date, these court dates, this trial. Do they have childcare obligations that they can't get out of? Are any of them sole business owners that are responsible for their own financial income that will be harmed if they're forced to come to the courthouse every single day? He said he's going to be tough but fair on this. He said jury service, I thought this was really poetic. He said jury service is a duty and a privilege. He said jury service predates the United States of America as it exists. He said they had juries in relation to crimes in colonial times. Before the US was even a thing, we were sitting together as juries. I was getting a history lesson. I thought it was really fascinating and really important.
Okay, yeah. So guys, it just seems like day one was basically him laying down the rules. Do y'all think that they're gonna follow, all 80 people are gonna follow them rules? I don't. That's my opinion on it. If y'all feel some type of way about like any of the rules, comment down below how y'all feel about. I want to know y'all opinion on this situation, on the jury selection process. Okay, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that sub button, join Team AP, so that way you don't miss no more of these videos. Keep y'all updated. Thank you. I'll see you next time.